Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us. You know, when a disaster strikes in your life, we basically naturally expect it to be loud, right?
Right, absolutely. We expect a sudden, massive shock to the system.
Right. Like a tree falls on the roof or the transmission in your car just violently seizes up on the highway.
Yeah, the kind of event where you can point directly at the smoking wreckage and say, yep, that is the exact moment everything went wrong.
Exactly. And I mean, the human brain is practically hardwired to respond to those sudden explosive failures.
Well, yeah, because we are incredibly efficient at dealing with acute fractures. A sudden failure demands an instantaneous, usually pretty massive response.
Yeah.
And because the damage is entirely visible all at once, there's really no ambiguity about what needs to be done.
But, the terrifying threats aren't usually the loud ones, though. The truly dangerous threats are like the silent storms.
And the slow accumulations.
Right, exactly. The slow, creeping accumulations of a problem that you don't even really notice at first. You just go about your routine. Everything seems completely fine until you wake up one morning and realize the entire landscape of your environment has just fundamentally, maybe even irreversibly, shifted.
That distinction right there, the difference between a sudden catastrophic failure and a gradual structural decay that is a massive blind spot in human psychology.
Oh, totally.
We are just notoriously bad at recognizing slow degradation until the system is literally already collapsing around us.
And that is exactly our mission for today. We're exploring a brilliant micro case study in recognizing that slow decay, managing the subsequent crisis, and honestly, fighting the very human urge to just panic.
It's such a great study, too.
It really is. And we are pulling this directly from a super specific online journal titled Notes on Fishkeeping. We're looking at a dispatch published today, actually, April 23, 2026.
Fresh off the press.
Yep. It is entry part 239 and is titled, Can This Small Filter Handles My Mbuna?
Now, I know on the surface this sounds like a literal dispatch about an aquarium.
Right. Just a story about a fish tank.
Exactly. But the underlying mechanics of the author's problem and, more importantly, the highly disciplined way they actually decide to solve it, it offers this absolute masterclass in how we process escalating problems in our own lives.
So setting the scene here, we have an aquarist who is documenting a severe decline in their tank's water quality. The text establishes that they maintain a high population of golden Mbuna.
Right, which is a type of fish that apparently generates a massive amount of waste.
Yeah, a lot of waste. The author notes that because of this, quote, heavy bioload, the water quality is just starting to fail. They actually document the degradation for their readers, writing, as you can see in the photo below, the water's turning a murky brown more and more each day.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are really analyzing here is a biological tipping point. That murky brown water is not the beginning of the crisis. It is a lagging indicator.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the difference between a leading and lagging indicator really changes how we understand the entire timeline of this failure, doesn't it?
It changes everything. So a lagging indicator is a measurable symptom that only becomes visible long after a complex system has already shifted.
So the damage is already done.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
By the time this author is looking at water turning murky brown, the invisible chemical balance of their environment has been compromised for quite some time.
Wow.
The natural capacity of this enclosed ecosystem, its ability to process the daily waste generated by that high population of golden Mbuna has been fundamentally overwhelmed.
Right. The residents are just going about their normal existence.
Exactly. But the sheer volume of that existence has quietly surpassed the system's limits. The murky water is just the final, undeniable visual proof that a threshold was crossed days, maybe even weeks ago.
It makes you think of soil during a heavy rainstorm.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. Because if you watch the ground during a downpour, the soil absorbs the water perfectly for a really long time. And to the naked eye, soil that is at 10% capacity looks exactly the same as soil that is at 99% capacity.
You literally can't tell the difference.
Exactly. You think the system is handling the load beautifully, but the moment that one final drop of rain falls, the drop that pushes the saturation to 101%, you suddenly have a flash flood.
And the flood is the murky water.
Yes. The system didn't break at the exact moment of the flood. It was invisibly marching toward failure with every single drop of rain, Like the population boom outpaced the waste management infrastructure. It's like a rapidly growing city.
Oh, a city analogy. I like that.
Yeah, think about a rapidly growing city where the population boom has suddenly just totally outpaced the waste management infrastructure. The garbage trucks and the sewers can't keep up, leading to a visible, daily compounding crisis.
And the crucial phrase the author uses there is more and more each day.
Right, it's getting worse.
The decay is not static. It is active, it's compounding, and it's accelerating. That heavy bioload is continuously pressing down on a filtration system that has, frankly, already lost the battle.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the water was slightly hazy. Today, it's murky brown. Tomorrow, it will be darker.
The flash flood is rising. And the author, to their credit, recognizes that they cannot just watch the ecosystem choke itself out. They state plainly in the text, it's clear we'll need to install an additional filter to keep things stable.
Which is a profound acknowledgement, right? The internal environment can no longer sustain itself without external intervention.
But this is where the journal entry gets incredibly fascinating to me. It's the inventory of solutions the author has access to and the specific choice they make.
The dilemma of the filters.
Yes, they mention having a few different sponge filters on hand. And they highlight two very distinct options from their supply. First, they have a small one, which they refer to as a compact solution.
Okay.
And then they have the heavy artillery, the bulky black sponge filter.
It is a textbook dichotomy of crisis management. You have the minimal intervention versus the maximum intervention.
Right. And with the water turning murky brown more and more each day, with the ecosystem actively degrading before their eyes, the author decides to deploy the small, compact sponge filter.
They literally just leave the bulky black filter in the closet.
Okay, I have to aggressively push back on this logic.
Really? Why is that?
Because if we look at human behavior in a crisis, this goes against every single survival instinct we have.
Well, it certainly goes against the impulse to overreact.
But is it overreacting? If your environment is literally turning toxic and the toxicity is compounding every 24 hours, you do not send in a tiny compact solution just to see what happens. This is a 5-alarm fire for those fish.
I see your point.
Right. If you have a massive, bulky, heavy-duty solution sitting right there in your supply closet, why wouldn't you deploy the biggest, most powerful tool available immediately? Playing around with a minimal fix just seems dangerously negligent when you are watching the environment visibly rot.
I completely understand that reaction. The instinct to throw maximum force at a visibly degrading problem is deeply ingrained in us.
It feels like the responsible thing to do.
It feels responsible, yes. But what's fascinating here is the author's underlying philosophy regarding the cost of a solution. They're practicing a highly disciplined form of minimal effective intervention.
But where's the discipline in letting brown water sit in a tank while you test a tiny sponge? I just don't get it.
Well, the discipline lies in uncoupling their own internal panic from the actual mechanical needs of the system. The author writes, "It's always better to see if a compact solution works before I commit to the bulky black sponge filter."
Okay.
They are intentionally avoiding overcorrection because in a delicate, closed ecosystem, every single intervention carries a permanent cost.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting, actually. You just highlighted the word commit.
Yes.
The author doesn't say before I use the bulky filter. They say before I commit to it.
Exactly. To commit to the bulky solution is to permanently alter the baseline of the environment. Look at the specific adjectives they use for the alternative: bulky and black.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Those aren't just descriptive words, they are penalties. A bulky object takes up valuable physical space. It displaces water.
It totally changes the current, too, right?
Exactly, it changes the current. It creates dead zones where debris can hide. And a massive black sponge disrupts the carefully curated aesthetic of the space.
So if they put that heavy artillery in the tank and it actually clears the water, they are now permanently stuck with a massive, ugly obstruction in their environment.
Precisely. They have solved a chemical crisis, but they have introduced a spatial and aesthetic crisis that will basically never go away.
Okay, I see it now. The author is weighing the compounding cost of the problem against the irreversible cost of the maximum solution.
Yes. They are essentially saying, I recognize the tipping point has been crossed, but I am going to apply the absolute minimum amount of force necessary to pull this system back from the brink.
Right, because if the small filter handles the bioload, equilibrium is restored without sacrificing the integrity of the environment.
That's the goal. But you're right, it requires an incredible amount of psychological restraint to look at a worsening problem, to know you possess the ultimate weapon to destroy that problem, and to consciously choose to leave it in the armory.
It really does. We so often assume that if we possess abundant, powerful tools, we are somehow obligated to use them the second trouble arises.
Oh, completely. The author even notes they have a few different sponge filters available. But the modern impulse is to deploy everything at once just to alleviate our own anxiety.
We just want to feel like we're doing something.
Exactly. Taking massive action makes us feel in control.
So we prioritize our own emotional relief over the actual long-term health of the system. We drop the bulky black filter into the tank, not because the fish absolutely need something that massive, but because we personally cannot stomach the anxiety of watching murky water for one more day.
Which is the hallmark of a reactionary mind versus an analytical mind. Keep in mind, this is part 239 of their journal.
Oh, right. They've been doing this a long time.
This person has spent thousands of hours observing closed systems. They view this crisis not as a catastrophe to be panicked over, but as a mechanical failure that requires a measured, stepwise response. Step 1, introduce the compact solution. Step 2, observe. Step 3, evaluate.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this deep dive right now? Because, while you might not have a tank of golden Mbuna in your living room, you absolutely manage closed ecosystems in your own life.
Everyone does. A daily workload, the management of a household, a creative pursuit, a small business. These are all delicate environments with very strict carrying capacities.
Right. And you inevitably experience periods where the population of tasks or stresses or obligations suddenly just booms.
It happens to all of us.
You take on a new client, you agree to spearhead a new committee, maybe your kids start a new intensive sport, and suddenly the internal infrastructure of your daily life is entirely overwhelmed by this new heavy bioload.
And the friction of just existing under those new parameters generates waste. The mental and physical toll just quietly accumulates.
The water of your mind starts getting a little murky, right?
That's exactly it.
You start forgetting emails, you snap at your partner over something incredibly minor. You feel a creeping, heavy exhaustion more and more each day. Those lagging indicators of burnout are showing up in your behavior.
But the threshold was crossed weeks ago when you took on the extra load. The symptoms are only just now becoming undeniable.
So when you look around and realize your environment is degrading, how do you respond to those lagging indicators? Do you immediately reach for the most disruptive, bulky solution?
A lot of people do.
Right. Do you quit your job, cancel every single social obligation for the next 6 months, and just completely detonate your routine to regain a sense of control?
Well, the nuclear option relieves the immediate anxiety, sure, but it leaves a massive crater in your life.
Exactly. So do you try a compact solution first? Do you try turning off your phone an hour earlier? Do you delegate just one single minor task to someone else?
Just block out 15 minutes of quiet time.
Yeah, 15 minutes. Just to see if that minimal intervention is enough to stabilize your ecosystem and clear the water.
But this raises a really important question about our tolerance for incremental change. Can you endure the discomfort of a slow recovery?
Oh, that's the hard part.
It is. Can you test the small filter and just sit on your hands while the water remains murky for a few more days, trusting the process?
And that brings us to the profound tension left entirely unresolved in the source text.
Oh, the ending.
The ending. The author installs the compact solution, and then they end the journal entry with a super simple sign-off. They just write, "Till the next post."
They are stepping back. They are letting the trial period run its course.
Now, we have spent this entire time praising the author's restraint and their disciplined use of minimal effective intervention. But we have to confront the hidden cost of a failed trial.
Because the environment doesn't pause just because you are running an experiment.
Exactly. The golden Mbuna are still swimming. The heavy bioload is continuously generating waste. If that small, compact sponge filter is actually insufficient, like if it genuinely cannot handle the volume, the water isn't just going to stay the same shade of murky brown.
No, it's going to get worse.
It is going to get darker, more toxic, and more dangerous every single hour if the author waits till the next post to observe the results.
The system continues to decay while the minimal intervention struggles to catch up.
So in a continuously deteriorating situation, how do you accurately measure the invisible line between a brilliant, measured response and a catastrophic delay?
It's a terrifying question.
It really is. At what exact moment does waiting to see if a small fix works push an ecosystem past the point of no return? Because, you don't want to use the heavy artillery too early. But if you wait too long, there might not be anything left to save.
It is a terrifying tightrope walk between patience and
And
peril.
it's definitely something for you to ponder the next time you notice the waters around you getting just a little bit murky. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll catch you next time.